Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the Hello Kitty case. I know it sounds really weird, but this one pretty much shook me and scared me for life. It's really chilling, and I'm just going to give you guys a trigger warning. There's a lot of gruesome details in this case. My grass is getting cut right now, so hopefully you guys can't hear that, but let's get to it. So the Hello Kitty case is about a young girl. She was 23 years old and she's from Hong Kong, China. Her name was Fan Man Yi, hopefully I say that right. She was taken by these three people after she had stolen a wallet, where she was tortured for over a month before she passed away. She had horrible things happen to her. She was forced to drink her own urine, eat her own poop. She was beaten and severely burned. And then sadly, after they did all this to her after a month and she passed away, what they decided to do was dismember her body. They cooked it in pots, and then they ended up stuffing it inside of a Hello Kitty stuffed animal that was like a mermaid shape. Really sick. So this is how the story goes. In 1997, Fan Man Yi ended up meeting a man named Chan Man Lok, which was a 34-year-old man. She was a hostess at a hot nightclub in Hong Kong. Sadly, she was also a prostitute and she was a drug addict. And he was a drug dealer and he was a pimp. They had gotten to know each other, and before long, he was part of her circle, or she was part of his inner circle, and basically he was her pimp. So in 1997, she was hurting for money and she really needed it. And as you know, when you're a prostitute, if you have a pimp, they basically take all of your earnings and you're their property. So Fan decided to steal his wallet because she was desperate, like I said, for food and for alcohol, for drugs. He had about $4,000 inside of it that she tried to take. As soon as he found out that she had stole his wallet, he recruited these two other guys, and I'm probably gonna butcher their names, Long Chin Chow and Long Wai Un. I definitely said that totally wrong. Well, he hired these guys to go get the money from her. She continued to work as a prostitute, trying to pay off this debt that she owed. This is where she grew really frustrated and annoyed that she wasn't able to repay it. And this is where her pimp basically made her work, repetitively as a 24/7 prostitute to get his repayment. He also did this because he wanted interest on that repayment. This is where it takes us to March 17th, 1999. These three men decided to abduct Fan from her apartment. And they took her to this third floor apartment of these three men, and they got high on meth. And this is where the three of them started to torture her, and this is where it all began. They started kicking her more than 50 times all over her body, all three of them yelling and screaming at her, "Why didn't you repay? Why didn't you repay?" Now, I'm gonna give you guys a trigger warning because this is where it gets really gruesome. They ended up splashing chili oil, hot chili oil that was burning, all over her body, all over her wounds. They forced it into her mouth. They forced her to swallow her urine, her feces, their urine, their feces. And one day, they ended up taking a melted piece of plastic straw and put it on her lap and made her laugh, and instantly she went into convulsions repeatedly. Then they tied her hands behind her with metal wires for several hours while they beat her with steel pipes. I can't even believe after all of this she's still alive. This is where she fell into a coma a few weeks later because her body just couldn't take any more and just gave out. This is like so disgusting, but while she was in a coma, one of the men burned her feet with a lighter. So police believe around mid-April 1999 is when she had finally, her body shut down and let go, and she had passed away. But it gets even more sick. You would think that would be enough, right? Like that'd be the end of it. No. They decide to start playing with her corpse. Once they realized that she wasn't living anymore, this is where they dismembered her. First, they moved her to the bathtub so she could bleed out. Then they sawed her bones. They took out all of her intestines and put them in a plastic bag. And they cooked her other body parts in a pot in the kitchen. They took all of her dismembered parts and ended up putting them in trash bags, and they got rid of them at a nearby gas station. They also used the kerosene stove in the kitchen to cook her head in the room. Because they were in such a hurry, they ended up accidentally dropping some of her organs in this apartment complex building. This is where they got this mermaid stuffed animal that was a Hello Kitty doll, and they took out a bunch of the cotton. They ended up putting her half-cooked skull inside of this. And this is where they ended up feeding the cooked meat, well, half-cooked meat, to their dogs. This shit is so unimaginable and disturbing. And if you think that isn't weird enough, it gets even more disturbing on a whole nother level. A 13-year-old girl ended up reporting her murder to the police about a month later in May of 1999. She says not only was she responsible for turning these people in who did this to her, but she was one of them herself. Oh my God. Were you guys expecting that turn? Because I was not. 13-year-old girl was another one of Chan's prostitutes. She says that after her death, she started having really bad nightmares about what they had done to her. And this is where it gets even stranger. She goes on to say that she believes that Fawn's spirit was haunting her and coming back for revenge. She says the only way that she thinks the hauntings will stop is she does the right thing and confesses to the police. So immediately the police go to this apartment, they search. The 3 men aren't there, but they had left behind a lot of evidence that basically corroborated this girl's story. Finally, they found all 3 of these guys and they were all arrested. 13-year-old girl received immunity in exchange for her testimony. All 3 men denied killing her, but they do say that they gave her an unlawful burial. Go figure, all 3 men kind of pointed the finger at each other. Really sad though is the defense basically said you have no idea what she died from. It could have been the meth that was in her system. Because her body was so dismembered and bruised and everything was everywhere that they couldn't figure out what actually caused her to die. Was it the torture? Was it her not being fed? Like all different things. So they ended up not being convicted of murder. They were convicted of manslaughter. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So back to the hauntings of where the 13-year-old girl said that she felt like she was being haunted. There was actually other people who claimed that they have seen spirits on this 4th floor. A really unusual, creepy incident ended up happening in this apartment. A woman in the building didn't even know that this had happened. She rented an apartment on the 4th floor. Her and her roommate said that they could constantly hear a woman crying. They also say where they heard the woman crying was in a room where nobody lived. And they also said that they would feel ghostly touches when they were sleeping at night. Now, the owner of the apartment building ended up saying that people who lived on the 4th floor, the people who actually helped the police identify Fawn's body, which was Mr. and Mrs. Hong and their children, they ended up seeing a ghost on the stairs, that building, which scared them so bad that they ended up immediately moving. Something else that had happened is that there's a hair salon in this apartment building, and this is on the 1st and 2nd floors, and the staff in this hair salon ended up saying that there was random Hello Kitty dolls left around in that area for no reason, with no idea where they came from. Then when they go to look at the security footage to see where it's coming from, they had found nothing that shows anybody bringing it in, but they found something really eerie. They found that after the door was closed at night, there was a shadow behind the person in charge of the salon while he was walking. Another lady who lived across in another building from the apartment where she was killed, she said she was looking out her window one day and it was a head that was in the window of the apartment where it had taken place. Because this apartment was said to be haunted and a lot of really bad, strange, eerie things were happening, an investor actually bought this apartment building in 2012 and had it demolished. Not gonna lie, this one pretty much takes the cake for the scariest case I've ever heard of. I want to know if you guys have heard of this story. I was reading about this last night in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep, and it was probably the worst idea for me to do. It really freaked me the fuck out, and I should not go on TikTok late at night and read stories like this because I just didn't end up sleeping. So yeah, that's the story of the Hello Kitty case. I love you guys so much, and thank you for watching.